Since you guys gave me such great feedback on my video last month, which was where is open to travel in November, I decided to make another installment, which is the travel update for December 2020. If you missed the previous video, I'll link that here for you. But today, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into all of the new countries that are open this month. As before, I'm gonna give you their new cases this week per 100,000 people and their entry requirements. Following that, I'm going to give you an update of the countries that were already open in last month's video, and I'll just update you on the new cases per week there. And then to finish off, I'm going to give you a list of the countries that are currently open, but may have some tighter restrictions in place and may not be accepting all passengers. And of course, we know that travel is still a very sensitive subject, so I'm just here to give you the information, so be sure to do your own research, make your own judgment call on whether to travel, and as always, listen to all of the local mandates. If you're new here, I'm Linda, a 35-year-old who sold everything to travel the world, and I'm here to help you get those bucket list checks, travel more, and live an adventurous adulthood. So be sure to hit subscribe and that notification bell. All right, and let's get started with all of the countries that are completely open for travel, including for Americans. There's no quarantine requirement, but you may be screened on arrival, and their new cases this week is 0.2 out of 100,000 people. However, this landlocked country in Africa is one of the lesser developed, and the US is strongly advising against travel here because of their limited resources. Equatorial Guinea. There's no quarantine on arrival. However, you do have to have a negative PCR test no older than 48 hours on arrival. Otherwise, you will be tested on site at your own cost. Their current new cases this week is 1 out of 100,000. This country is on the west coast of Central Africa, and it actually has Spanish as its official language. You can visit lush rainforests and nature preserves here. There's no quarantine or arrival requirements, and their new cases this week is 3.9 out of 100,000 people. Afghanistan is located in South and Central Asia, and this war-torn country is actually famous for producing pomegranates. However, tourism is still a really small industry here due to security issues, and the US highly advises against travel here. There are no quarantine requirements, however, you do have to complete a passenger locator form prior to arrival. Their new cases this week are 35 out of 33,701. That is the population because this is a very small British overseas territory on the southern Iberian Peninsula. It sits just below Spain and is known for the Rock of Gibraltar, which I'm sure is a bucket list check for many. There's no quarantine on arrival, but you do have to have a migration form filled in. Their new cases this week is 130 out of 100,000 people. This is one of my favorite countries in South America, where you can find anything from beachfront cities like Cartagena or hike the lush landscapes of the Cocora Valley. An absolute must-do in my opinion. Costa Rica. There's no quarantine requirement, but you do have to have a health form filled in before arrival. You also have to have health insurance covering you for COVID treatment and accommodation. Their new cases this week is 134 out of 100,000 people. This Central American country faces the Caribbean as well as the Pacific Ocean and is a great spot for exploring rainforests or catching some waves. As long as you haven't been in any one of these countries for the last 21 days, you are free to enter, but you will have to have a health declaration on arrival and you will be screened. Unfortunately, there is no data on their current cases this week. However, this is a small island in Micronesia with a population of only about 12,000 people, and it is defined by white sandy beaches dotted with palm trees. And here is a list of the countries that were open during my last video that are currently still open for travel, including Americans. And these are their updated numbers of new infections this week per 100,000 people. There are plenty of other countries open, but they may just have some tighter restrictions or may not be allowing all passengers. It's quite an extensive list, so this video would be forever long if I went through all of them. So I'm going to show you a few examples of what some of these different restrictions are. And at the end, I will show you the full list of all countries open for tourism. Just be sure to do your own research depending on your own personal circumstances. In Kenya, for example, you must have a negative PCR test not older than 96 hours, and it must be in English. You must also have a health declaration form filled in, and you are subject to screening as well as quarantine on arrival. Flights to Peru are still suspended with the exception from these airports. You also have to upload a negative PCR test that is no more than 72 hours before your initial embarkation, and you have to complete an affidavit of health 72 hours before departure. You'll have to complete an ETIS application as well as have a negative PCR test issued no more than 3 days before your last direct flight to French Polynesia. You must have a negative PCR test no older than 72 hours to get to Belize. And you are subject to screening on arrival, plus you have to have a booking confirmation of one of the approved hotels, which can be found on their website. So there you go. That is the travel update for December 2020. As I said, things are still constantly changing, so be sure to do your own research before booking anything. And as always, make sure you take every safety measure and precaution you possibly can to protect yourself and others if you do decide to travel. Until next time, be good to one another, be good to our planet, and keep adventuring.